Well, let's explore this story a bit further with Andrew Nielsen, Director of Campaigns for the leading prison reform charity Howard League. Thank you for joining us on BBC News. According to your assessment, how easy is it to import this idea from the US and apply it to UK prisons?
Well, we certainly welcome the idea in principle. I mean, I think the idea of incentivizing people to progress through their sentences by offering the opportunity of early release if they do work and other purposeful activity is broadly a good one, and that would be regardless of whether we had a prison's capacity crisis, as we do. Our concern really is that we do see at the moment a very overcrowded system with inspection reports almost every week detailing prisons unable to offer purposeful activity. Prisoners languishing in their cells, doing nothing, wanting to do work in education, but not being offered it. So that is a big question mark on how easy it will be to import this. We need to really see a transformation in prison regimes. And that, I think, ultimately means we do need to see bolder steps taken to reduce overcrowding so that prisons can offer these sorts of positive and active regimes to try and offer that kind of incentivized progress.
And what kind of jobs are we talking about here? Who would provide them? And would it involve more government resources?
Well, again, that's a question to be answered, because I suspect in Texas, most of the work that we're talking about is prison-based and offered by the prison. For example, we saw in some of the coverage somebody doing barbering in the prison, and that barber would be, I imagine, just installed in the prison in a barber studio and asked to do the job. There are opportunities, I think, to be more ambitious in the UK around how work is delivered. The prisons minister, Lord Timpson, has a track record of employing people when they leave prison, and I think he could be looking at what employment in prison might look like, because over and above whether people can earn early release, I think there is a question over what kind of work people are doing, how skilled it is, whether it is properly remunerated, because we do want to prepare, obviously, people in prison for a life outside that involves work, because that's one of the key ways to keep them on the straight and narrow and make sure that they are no longer reoffending.
And more broadly, how do you think the government is performing when it comes to its recent efforts to ease overcrowding in prisons?
Well, the early release scheme that was expanded last year has certainly eased some pressure on the system, but that pressure is building again. Numbers are going back up, and I think that over the summer we will again see a real squeeze on prison capacity and the same kind of risk that we saw over last summer, where it looked like the government might actually run out of prison cells. That is why the sentencing review that David Gauke is chairing is so important. But even with that review delivers its recommendations on time in March, April, May, the government will need to legislate, I suspect, to implement some of those recommendations. And that's unlikely to happen until the autumn at the earliest. So there is still a crunch point, I think, that the government is facing over prisons. And that just underlines the importance of bold action to try and lance the boil of prison overcrowding and the capacity crisis, allow the system to reset and push itself on a more sustainable footing, where we can see productive prison regimes that are offering people rehabilitation opportunities and making it less likely that people commit crime on release rather than more likely.
Thank you. Andrew Nielsen there from the Howard League.